Powered by Riverside FM.
How can the Minnesota Vikings shock us in 2025? That is the question of the day. That is the title of this video. By the way, hit that like and subscribe button and consider becoming a member. I think when you use the word shock, I think it's a double-edged sword. There could be shocking that's good. There could be shocking that's bad. So I'm just thinking of some things where the Vikings could shock the purple fan base, UP Nation, Skull Nation, Minnesota Vikings Nation in the future. One shock would be if they brought back Sam Darnold. I know we've talked about that to exhaustion. We've just talked about it to exhaustion, but as long as Sam Darnold is out there in limbo, hasn't really had any concrete offers yet from what we hear. There is always that distinct possibility, UP Nation, that he could be on the table in terms of coming back. I do think the Minnesota Vikings are dealing with him like they dealt with Kirk Cousins. I believe that there has been conversation with Sam Darnold and his representation of this is what we would have Sam Darnold back for. It's an offer that they know that Sam Darnold is not going to accept. So therein, the Vikings can say, hey, well, we offered him something, but he chose to test free agency, and he ended up signing elsewhere. It's kind of the same deal under the table that they kind of gave Kirk Cousins, and I believe they're doing the same thing with Sam Darnold. Why they would want to do that with Sam Darnold and not just say, hey, JJ's our guy, I don't know, but I really I don't see a scenario in why you would bring a Sam Darnold back as a backup. That's just not going to work. And if there's some sort of quarterback competition, I don't know why the Minnesota Vikings would want that when you got J.J. McCarthy in the helm. So it would be absolutely shocking if the Minnesota Vikings brought back Sam Darnold. Another thing that would be shocking is if the Minnesota Vikings did not really address the trenches, which is the weakest part of their team, offensive line, interior defensive line. Like if they went out and really didn't address that. I know that they were looking at Fries from the Indianapolis Colts, who I think would be a great addition to our offensive line, but I do think we need a little bit more. There's been that conversation of we need to get rid of Bradbury. I don't know if that's going to happen, but the Minnesota Vikings need to address that interior offensive line with two guards. Maybe it's a combination of, free agency and getting a guard in the draft. But I think that is paramount that they have to address at least two positions on that offensive line. And there are some that say, well, if you address the two guard spots, it's going to make Bradbury better. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm on board with that, but I guess that's a possibility when it comes to that offensive line. But I think you got to be addressing it. And I think it would be shocking that if the Vikings only made one move on that offensive line to solidify everything, I think that would be shocking, knowing that it's paramount to their running game, protecting J.J. McCarthy, and all that comes with that. It would just be shocking if they just made one move, a minimal move, to address that offensive line. I think that's a big part of this team that needs to be hit intensely by the Minnesota Vikings. I think it would also be shocking, there's reports been out there that Bosa from the Chargers has been cut. He would be available. Do the Vikings pick him up? I think that would be shocking if the Vikings went all in on Bosa. As you guys know, I'm an Ohio State guy, so any former Ohio State alumni I'm for, but the question becomes, what is the price tag for an often injured Bosa from the San Diego Chargers? I think he would be a great addition to the team. Don't necessarily know if he kind of fits what Brian Flores wants. He's kind of like in that Myles Garrett type, area where Myles Garrett would be great for the Vikings. Don't necessarily know if his skill set fits what Brian Flores wants to do. I know that when you have a high caliber player, there's kind of like this narrative out there where if you have an opportunity to get a high caliber player, you change your scheme. I don't know if I'm on board with that. But I think it would definitely be a shocking thing if the Minnesota Vikings went after Bosa. We're talking about things that would be shocking in 2025. I know that there have been rumblings out there about Quasi Adolfo-Mensa and his contract situation. Wouldn't it be shocking, man, if we went through this whole summer and Kwesi, and it's around about August and September, and Quasi Adolfo-Mensa has not gotten a contract extension yet after the free agency period, after the draft? There have been some rumblings. The whole sickness last week with Kwesi and not running those meetings. When you have stuff like that happens, it opens the door for people to come in and talk about and look at, things that may be going on behind the scenes. Mike Florio's come out and said that, there are people that don't know who's running the Vikings organization right now. And I'll deal with Mike Florio later. I am going to dedicate a one podcast, a video to Mike Florio, because I'm getting sick and tired of that guy. I can tell you that right now. But it would be shocking if the Minnesota Vikings did not lock up Quasi Adolfo-Mensa pretty soon. I think that would be kind of strange if that didn't happen. It would be shocking. I think it would be shocking that at this point, anybody in 2025 that's not named J.J. McCarthy is the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, barring J.J. McCarthy being healthy. And it sounds like from the latest Kevin O'Connell interview that he's there every day and he's fully healthy and he's ready to go. So if anybody is the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings in 2025, other than J.J. McCarthy, man, I just think it would be really, really shocking. I think it would also be shocking. I'm not saying the Vikings should be 14-4 next year, but I would be really shocked if this is not a playoff team and they're not in the conversation of being one of the best teams in the NFC. I feel like it's going to be an upgrade in quarterback. At times, J.J. McCarthy is going to show that he's a rookie. But all the pieces are in place. You still got great skill positions. You should be improved on the offensive and defensive line. You should have drafted another running back to go along with Aaron Jones if you decide to bring Aaron Jones back. If you don't decide to bring Aaron Jones back, that's a different story. That also would be shocking for me. If they brought Aaron Jones back at a $7 million a year contract, 1 year, 2 year, $14 million, 1 year, $7 million, which is pretty much the same deal he got last year, I would be shocked if the Minnesota Vikings brought him back on the same deal. If he wants to take a pay cut, you bring him back for $3 million, $4 million. I would take that for an Aaron Jones that's coming off a career year last year, people. UP Nation, some people forget that this was a career year for Aaron Jones. And he was, busted up at times, playing with a lot of injuries, but he really didn't miss any games. So is Aaron Jones willing to stay where his carries are probably going to be cut in half and a team with a great coach that has a chance to win? Or will he go to a place like Denver that's going to make him the bell cow? And I just think if you make Aaron Jones the bell cow, I think you are in absolutely big-time trouble with the amount of money that you're going to invest in that guy. But I would be shocked if you brought him back at the same price tag. So I'm just thinking about things in 2025 that may shock Minnesota Viking fans, UP Nation fans with the purple. I'm looking forward to moving into the J.J. McCarthy era, 2025. And I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to be one of the better teams in the NFC. But as with all things, it kind of depends on what other people are doing. So I would be shocked if the Vikings weren't aggressive in free agency. I would be shocked if Quasi Adolfo-Mensa doesn't hit and doesn't accumulate more draft picks in this draft. I would be shocked if Quasi Adolfo-Mensa does not have a contract extension by the fall. A lot of things that would just shock me as a Minnesota Viking fan. So I just want to get on here and talk about it. What do you think, UP Nation? What are some things that would shock you in 2025 if they don't happen with the purple, or maybe some shocking things that you feel like will happen with the purple? Put them in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button. Please consider becoming a member. This has been Unconventional Playbook, and we will make sure to see ya when we see you. Later, UP Nation.